want a loan to start a small business.
Small business.
Small business.
I work for a small business.
A small business.
I'm saving money to buy a small business.
Hi guys, Oscar's called in sick today. Welcome to the Small Business Survival Guide podcast, where entrepreneurs from the pest control world share their tips to help your business thrive. Join us as we break down the business game and steer you towards success. My name is Tom Aldridge and I am one of the owners of Suburban Pest Management, and joining me today is my wife Kahlee Aldridge and my cousin Jacob Aldridge. How are we today?
Hello.
It's good to be here. Good to finally get a Guernsey. You've been knocking these out of the park and haven't bothered to invite me before now.
Well, you know, we wanted to make sure we kicked it off the ground first. We didn't want to waste your time.
Well, you're way better at these than us. Wait till everyone hears Jacob.
Yeah, maybe we should have started from the start to boost it even more. So, of course, he's not just my cousin. Jacob is our business coach for the last 8 years, but you've been coaching for about 18 years. Focusing on small business, family business. But what Kahlee and I really love about Jacob is he can cover all areas of the business, not just one or two niche areas. So as our business has grown and different issues have popped up, you've been able to help us support us in a number of areas for a number of years. So great to have you on the podcast today. I guess I wanted to start by talking about, where it all started, why we ended up getting your help. We touched on in the last podcast, for the first couple of years, things were going great for us, and then it wasn't just the birth of our son Carter, but a number of reasons why things started to become very challenging for us in business. And it got to the point where we weren't making money, and we tried a few other things that weren't necessarily getting us a result. And at the time, it felt like we weren't making any money. How do we afford a business coach? But I kind of looked at it and thought, well, how can we afford not to have a business coach? It was a time when we didn't have the answers. We needed that support. It was the right time for us to get you on board. Do you want to tell us a bit about your recollections, if it was the same?
Well, and I think it's a general, businesses go through these phases. You invest in what you think is a good idea. More often than not, if you're good, and you guys are very good, you get a return on that investment, the business grows, and then that just starts to become a bit business as usual. You hit the next plateau and you got to go looking for the next investment. What's the next thing? And some business owners are great at always being a couple of steps ahead. Most small business owners are not so great. They hit that plateau and as you say, they get stuck there for a while. They don't know what to do next. Cash starts to get tighter, and so then they're investing less, and they just sort of find their level. And if that's at a point where they're comfortable with their business, their lives, then that's fantastic. They can be happy. Then there are some that are looking to invest, are looking for that next growth, and that's what I recollect, when the three of us sat down to have the proper conversation as business people, not just as family, was we're not sure what to do next, but we're committed to actually doing it and investing and getting a return. I think you guys need to be commended on that. And 8 years on, for continuing to look for that investment, look for that opportunity, get that growth, because you've achieved so much in this business that most business owners don't. And some of it goes back to that first decision about taking the risk and investing, even when it would have been easy not to.
Yeah, and I think if I can't believe it's taken 4 episodes for me to bring in a football analogy. Kahlee loves a football analogy. A business coach, it would be like having a footy team without a coach, and you're losing games and you don't know. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer in retrospect why we didn't bring you on sooner, or why everyone doesn't have one. But I think the key part is you can also have, like a footy team, bad coaches and good coaches. And if you can't cover all areas, like some business coaches can't cover all areas like you can.
If you've got a team out the back that can't pass, and you've got a coach who's great at scrummaging and can't actually help with the passing, then you're going to have problems. If you've got a sales coach that comes in, and if they're a sales coach, they're going to look at the business and go, oh, guess what? You need sales. Even if it's a cultural issue or it's a recruitment problem or whatever else might be going on for the business. So that's certainly how I've done my training over the 18 years I've been coaching, and beyond that is looking at all the different areas of the business. And, I suspect that's still what goes on for each of you when you're thinking about what you want to keep creating with Suburban Pest Management. It's, you don't just have one idea. You've got a whole lot of different things. And how do you juggle all of that
Put it all
plus
together.
the realities of running a business that's now this
Yeah.
big?
When do you think that you get brought into a business generally? Because if I look back on our first couple of years, there's no way we would have been able to do what we were doing as well as afford to do that initially. So when do you find you normally get brought into a business?
The conversation I tend to have is I work mostly with business owners who are 30 to 45. If they're not in business with their spouse, they're normally married, young kids, some of those kind of added challenges, but they've achieved a level of success.
Yeah.
They've built a bit of a team, and having achieved that success, they suddenly think, hang on, what I really want is something different. It's bigger. I thought I wanted to be able to drive this nice car or make this much money or go on this holiday with my family, but actually what I really want is this huge level of freedom or this level of impact in my industry and my client base in the world. And the challenge that they realize, consciously or not, is that what got them to the current level of success is not what's going to get them to that next level. And the risk is, well, if I take apart what's currently working, I could get better or I could get worse.
Yeah.
And that, again, comes back to some of that sitting in a little bit of a plateau.
Yeah.
So they're the conversations I tend to have, the businesses I tend to work with have had that level of success. A startup, small business that doesn't have a whole lot of venture capital funding and is going to go and be a $20 million business in its second, third year. The startup businesses generally need to work on sales, marketing, get a good accountant that can help you with the financials so you know what the money's doing, where the dollars are.
Yeah.
If you start thinking too big, too fast, and that's where I sort of sit, then you can be investing in the best looking business coach in the world, and you're not going to get a return because what you need is not necessarily what I bring.
Yeah. They'd only get to see you every month. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
And I am.
Yeah, good looking.
I'm worth it, but
Yeah.
it's what they need is not, here's a huge great strategy. What they need is like, have you thought about talking to customers?
Yeah.
Have you tried selling?
That's right.
And there's only so many times I can tell you that for $1,000 a month before you kind of go, we're getting any value out of this guy? Sounds like a broken record. And when you guys came in, there were a lot of opportunities, a lot of things that you built that were working but weren't going to work as you kept going.
Yeah.
And having the blind spots when you're on the field, you can't see where some of those things might be happening, and that's where a coach can help.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point, it's no good hiring a coach if you're not listening to them or actually making
That's
changes. Right. It still comes down to your self-responsibility. You can get given the advice, but you have to take it, have to do something with it. If we jump over to specifically Suburban Pest Management, when you came on board with us, we touched on, we had grown. We tried to put on a few more techs and a few more admin to support that growth, and it didn't work. We ended up with more costs than we were generating revenue. We were going backwards with the finance side of it. What's your take on what was the biggest issue that where we went wrong? We probably had about 10 to 12 staff at that time, I think. So we'd grown by a few staff, but we weren't huge at that point.
And you were at a transition phase, and when you get to see as many businesses as I do, you get to start to see some of these patterns. Up to about 12 people, business is a doing phase. So each of you knew every client. You had a pretty good idea of what each of the techs were out there doing each day. If, Jody out the front was having a bad day, you both knew about it and knew how to manage it, and you knew what was going on, and you knew it would resolve itself, whatever it might be. You're doing the doing. 12 to around about 35 employees is the process phase. And so you were about to, and you'd butted up against this big transition where you have to go from doing and knowing what's going on and being able to just stick your hand in and fix everything to having to build the processes, hand it over to a team and let them run with it without your oversight. And that's a huge emotional let go to grow kind of phase. And a lot of business owners get there and just sort of get stuck because they're not willing and not aware. And Kahlee's laughing because she still sits there some days. Tom goes too far the other way. And it's like, that sounds like an everyone else problem. You got to get the balance. And again, it's one of the things that you do really well as a partnership in business is the complementary skills. So you were facing that. Where that was manifesting itself in the finances was you had too many admin team. You weren't leveraging technology well enough because your pattern, your experience of success was let's just get in and do it.
Yeah.
And now there's more to do, so we need more people to do it. And we're not going to go and get great people because they're too expensive, but we're going to go and get more people and hope that works out. And so I think today the business is like 4 times the size it was back then. In revenue, it's like 4.5, 5 times as big as it was back then. But your admin team, that red in the business that I talk about, is maybe double the size, maybe a little bit, maybe 3 times. I mean, you've got bigger software system, you've got all this technology, but the ratio works a lot more. Your ratio is out of whack because you threw administrative bodies at the doing stuff instead of building the systems and processes to allow those people to do more with less payroll, less overhead.
Yep.
Once you learned
Sounds
that,
good.
the profit started showing up again, the revenue, and you kicked into the next phase of revenue growth.
Hit the nail on the head. We were just talking about that on a previous podcast.
Glad to see we remembered and we're kind of on the same page
Yeah.
with what the issues were.
Yeah.
It was all a bit of a blur. Do you remember sitting in my office upstairs and having Carter in the bouncer behind me trying to...
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I've had a few of those over the years. I remember one client was like 4 weeks old and she just put the kid on the boardroom table, like on the edge of the table, and went for the nappy. And I just remember kind of saying, you do those at a certain point, he's going to learn to roll over and you're not going to be able to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I do remember being in your office during an earthquake.
Yeah, we
That
didn't
was,
even realise.
that was like that was early, 2015,
Yeah.
2016, yeah.
I mean, something shook, but we didn't
Yeah,
realise at the
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Oh, the safe work practices, I thought you were going to mention we had no handrail on the staircase for about the first 18 months. So,
You're not supposed to say that out loud.
oh, no. This was,
And so we didn't ever go up the stairs.
yeah, no.
No,
couldn't
we
use
cordoned
the
it off
office
and
for
said
the
it's,
teams.
not safe.
What's
I remember
the-
when I was sitting in there with no aircon and I was like 8 months pregnant because we couldn't put it in. I remember that.
These are
I don't do air
the
conditioning, so
challenges.
is that my fault still?
Well, so there's the old joke, the Fair Work Commissioner comes out to a small business and it's like, okay, I'm gonna audit you. You got to tell me, how big's your team, how much are you paying? And the owner goes, well, I got 2 team members. We got Bob. He kind of works a few hours a day. We pay him 100 grand a year. And then we've got this other guy who I think must be a little bit simple because he works 3 times as much. He's working all weekend and we pay him bugger all. The Fair Work Commissioner goes, yeah, him. He's the guy I want to talk to. And the owner goes, yeah, you're looking at him.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. So obviously, when you came on board, you helped us resolve a lot of the issues, and then it kind of got back on track. Then we had, I guess, fast forward through that middle period. We might touch on that another time, but I was curious. Get to the COVID years, and we kind of got to that 35 that you talked about, where we went from process business to trying to get to that next stage. And you mentioned the whole software thing. We weren't doing that well in the early years. We had paper-based reports. We'd have to get people to physically transfer that data into the
You had
system.
guys driving into the office at the start of every day, the end of every day, and that then limited how geographic you could go, putting in ServiceMate, the software you used initially, then suddenly expanded the reach. You could recruit people in more areas. You could go and deliver the good service you do in more areas, yeah.
Yeah, it gave us lots more flexibility. We just didn't get to see the guys as much.
No, and it became, because culture is such an important part of our business and any business really, you have to do it in other ways. So the teams,
Team chats.
online.
And then, COVID shows up and you can't get the team in.
Makes it even more challenging. So, having the group team meetings and all of that is a key part. But in the last few years, we kind of got to that next level where it became a challenge. The software system, ServiceMate, is a fantastic system for a small business.
You weren't
we
a small business
We got to
anymore.
the point where they literally told us, no, we can't handle a business your size. It's not going to work. That's why it's crashing on you every day. What was your take on that wall and the decisions we've made in the last sort of 2 years or so?
Yeah, but the next phase, so you go doing phase to process phase, and then you've got to go from process phase to capability phase. And again, it's another big transition emotionally, energetically as a business owner, because now you need to go and recruit people who have that strategic capability, that functional capability, who know way more than you, and you've got to pay them a lot more. And you've got to trust them because they are so far ahead when it comes to something like marketing or IT that you're never going to be able to catch up. And that's always a gamble. In the process phase, you can hire someone, you know whether they're following the process or not. Capability phase, you can have someone come in, and I know you've tried with a couple, they've come in and promised the earth, and it's only when we've really pushed them and the delivery that we've realised that actually their competency was not as big as their ego. And you found some great ones. And the IT project was an example of that. And it always is in the mid-tier business. It's such a huge process because it's the business is big enough to warrant personalisation. You know, what you managed to do with ServiceMate to wrangle it, to do a whole lot of the things was fantastic. But you had outgrown that kind of off-the-shelf, this does 80, 90% of what we want, because that 10% is still hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in profit that you're missing out on if it doesn't do that. So how do we go down the personalization route? But we're not going to go and get a huge ERP. We're not going to go and get SAP, Oracle, or IFS, or go and spend $800,000 a year on consultants to do it, because we're not that big.
No.
So trying to juggle the capability and still have that commitment as business owners to rolling up the sleeves when things don't go well and going, well, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I've got to learn this. I've got to develop some of the capability. So that was another one of those big investments that you've made that kicks off the growth, and is a challenge, is an area where a lot of business owners would start asking themselves, do they really want to go to that next level of growth? And you guys did, and you have.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. Different people have different objectives when they're starting out in business or growing it. If you get to that stage, the first one around that 12, and you don't want to go to that process stage, you like the doing, I guess you have a choice. You just have to be aware of what that choice is and whether or not you want to stop growing, you want to stay as you are.
Well, and there's 6 ways to grow a business, and adding more people is only one of them. So you've got other options, but again, most small business owners don't know this. They haven't gone and done an MBA, and frankly, if they did, it'd be a waste of their time, because oh great, this is what Telstra did in this situation. That's really going to help me. So if you're not chatting to someone, if you don't have a mentor or a coach or smart people on a podcast sharing their journey, then you can get a little bit stuck as to what's relevant for you right now, what you need to do.
And if we go right back to if you're starting out your own business, we kind of discussed in the last podcast, particularly from the lens of if you're working with your partner, you've got a small, a young family, can you realistically juggle it all? Does it come down to what your agenda is if you're trying to grow the business, become this global empire, or if you're just trying to do a few jobs a few times a week?
Clarity of vision is essential. That was a big early project that I did with you guys to help confirm, and the fact that you really genuinely wanted to change this industry in Australia. That's a big vision. That's a commitment. That's not something you're going to be able to do with 12 employees.
Yeah.
So then it sets the scene for the strategy and all of those kind of things. If you're starting out, you're juggling the family. Two key things. Work-life balance is a myth.
I have learnt so much from you. You listen to another podcast and you're going to think that I'm you. I've learnt something.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Jaffa, just another fantastic Aldridge.
That's right.
It's about the rhythm. You got the cycles of life, the cycles of your business. Some of these cycles we've been talking about, invest, grow, plateau, or, we get to 12, we get to 35, you go through all of these kind of rhythms. You're starting a business. If you think you're going to start a business and work 30 hours a week and be able to achieve everything you want out of business and be there as a father or as a parent, and as a spouse and all of those kind of things, it's not going to happen, and you're going to end up failing across all 3 of those.
Agreed.
And if you've got that spouse and the kids, you all got to be all in. It's like, we're going to build this business. Here is where we're going, and it doesn't have to be, the moonshot that maybe you got down here, but it's like, I'm going to replace my income, I'm going to double my income, or we're going to have this flexibility, or I'm just going to work my ass off and make a difference because that's what I really want to do, and I'm not going to die with the music in me. And if your spouse is not on board with that, if your kids aren't supportive of that, then you're going to struggle. And I think that's the challenge. The second thing where so many new startup phase businesses, first 18 months to 3-year businesses, really fail is they copy the wrong homework. And back when I was getting started, it used to be you go to all these breakfast meetings and seminars and you get the presentation. Now it's freaking podcasts because they listen to people on a podcast, and the people on the podcast say, oh, we do this with culture. We have this great team meeting and we run a barbecue and everyone comes in and we do this well-being and we give it EAP a shout out and all of these kind of things. And they sit there, 6 months into their business and go, I need to do that. If I want to be Tom and Kahlee, and I absolutely do, I need to do the things they're doing, without realizing that you guys are at a very different phase of your business to where they are. They're copying the wrong homework. Yeah. And if they don't get that clear, they're going to go round and round in circles. And that's why I say it's not about getting the big generalist business coach sometimes, because in that early stage, it's like, get some clients, get some leads, make sure you can actually deliver the work, deliver it profitably. All that growth stuff, all that culture, la-di-da, can come a little bit later. Bust your bottom in the early days, and the rhythm will flow and you will get a return on that investment. But don't expect it to happen immediately, and certainly don't run a startup business like that guru at Atlassian who's making $1 billion a year runs his business, because his business is not your business.
Very good.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I'm sorry I don't have any opinions to share with you on the survival podcast.
Yes. No, I love what you're saying, and it's easy in retrospect when we look back at the, as you say, like getting clear on the agenda or your goal, your ambition is such a key part of it, what your vision is, and then, as you say, the different phases, we can see the different phases when we look back, that where we're at in different times of life, and understanding those two key things to make decisions on.
And you're in the capability phase now, and then one of the other rhythms is the sweet spot. So we've got to double. We've got to get you to 100 people pretty quickly.
But that's on record for our next meeting, Kahlee. I'm sure you love that.
I didn't just fall off my chair.
Well, look, I'd love to stay here and chat for hours, but we better wrap it up there.
I've got one more question, though.
All right, one quick one.
Jacob, who out of Tom and I is your favourite to work with? Put you on the spot here.
Oscar.
No, I said Tom and Kahlee.
Mm-hmm. Good answer.
No, Jacob's helped us a lot over the past 8 years, wrangling me and Tom. So thank you.
God helps those who help themselves. And, we reached a point 2-3 years into the relationship where you guys had achieved a whole lot of the things that you wanted. And that's the point where, for me, a lot of those business owners hit that plateau and they're comfortable and they're happy. And we go and have the conversation. You took me out to play a round of golf, and you had that conversation like, we've achieved everything we wanted to achieve. And that's where I normally get the pat on the back. Your next sentence was, so Kahlee and I want to know what's next. What's the next investment we've got to make? How can you help us get to that next level? And that is rare. And the success that you guys have had is rare. And it's been a privilege to be able to support you on that journey.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, and as Kahlee, exactly.
Oh, yeah, I take full credit.
Yeah.
I'm
Good
a consultant.
looking and
modest.
full credit. Yeah.
I'm an Aldridge.
No, I really appreciate everything you've done for us, and thanks for joining us on the podcast. I suspect it's probably not the last one you'll join us on, because there's so much more we could talk about. No, this is fun. And hopefully everyone, took something out of it today. Oscar's
if
suddenly made a quick recovery. I don't know if you want to jump in, Oscar, and do No Longer Sick.
No longer sick, sorry guys.
Do you want to do the quiz?
Yeah, just a quick quiz for everyone. So monetary-wise, in the US every year, how much damage do termites do? I need a dollar figure. Thank you very much.
I don't know. 500 billion.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
I was thinking more like 5 billion. Are we talking US dollars or Australian dollars? US dollars. Well, I'm thinking the size of the US property market is about, I don't know, $27 quadrillion or something. But
carry the
billions. Yeah.
Is there such thing as quadrillion?
Yeah, it's the one between trillion and quintillion.
Oh gosh.
But I'm going 5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That's in Australia, isn't it?
Yeah, I have a feeling that is the answer. So I'll go $5 billion and $1.
That's Australian.
It's tactics.
Nah, then I'm changing mine.
500 billion.
5 billion and 2.
That was Australian dollars. We'll go.
Bring it back.
The exchange
Bring
rate.
it back, yeah.
We'll go Australian. 237 billion.
$237 billion.
Dollars.
Okay.
Australian, which at
Australian
current
dollars.
exchange rates is about 170 billion US.
Oh, I am not mathematically smart. That's for sure.
Well, I think everyone's correct because it was 5 billion. So
Oh, no.
I don't know. I think it was a US site, so I think it's 5 billion, but I'm not
Really?
sure.
I thought that was in
Well,
Australia.
Jacob was on the money, so I was a
Yeah,
dollar over.
see,
so.
he is clever.
Yeah.
This guy, he knows
I do
everything.
the research. I do the research for my clients.
And if anyone needs help, we got a shout out.
Well, if people want to learn a little bit more, jacobaldridge.com/survival. We put up a landing page. I'll put some links to some, kind of free quizzes, downloads, videos that people might be interested in. So if they want to learn a little bit more about what I do with small business, jacobaldridge.com/survival. Happy to share that with all of your myriad viewers.
Cool. Thanks, Jacob.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you in the next one.
I want a loan to start a small business.
Small business.
Small business. For a small business.
I'm saving money to buy a small business.